Welcome to The Recovering Perfectionist, where you'll learn all the hacks you need to get started and finished on your business or project. You'll connect with successful entrepreneurs who are in perfectionist rehab, unapologetically experimenting and balancing life, business, family, and me time. I'm your host and Chief Recovering Perfectionist, Claire Barton. Hey, it's Claire from The Recovering Perfectionist. Thanks for joining me today on the show. I have got Janeen Vosper coming on the show today, and she and I met at an amazing workshop a couple of weeks ago with Francesca Moy and Natasha Denman in an event or a workshop called Bums on Seats, which is all about getting people into your workshop and your meetups and all of that sort of thing. And Janeen and I were chatting because she also has a podcast called We Are Women, which of course took my interest because it's a podcast and because it's all about women, which is kind of a good overlap with what I talk about. Janeen does lots of different things. She's an international trainer and she is a speaker and author. And she talks a lot about sales, but in a really non-sausagey way, which we all love as well. So have a listen, love to hear your thoughts, and I will get started now. Hey everyone, it's Claire and I have got Janeen Vosper with me today. And Janeen and I have only known each other for about a week and a half. We met at an amazing workshop conference with Francesca Moy and Natasha Denman last week, which was absolutely amazing content, but the people that I met were fantastic and Janeen was one of them. So welcome on the show, Janeen. It's so nice to have you here. And Janeen is also a fellow podcaster. She is a mastermind meetup leader. She's a coach. She's an international trainer. She's an author. She's kind of just amazing at everything. So I'm going to hand over to you, Janeen, to articulate a little bit better what it is that you do. And
thank you very much, Claire. Yeah, I totally agree. I really enjoyed our conversation at that training session, those 2 days of training. And I do agree with you. There was so many people that just had so much to offer. So it's always great meeting new people with getting new ideas.
Yes.
So a little bit about me. I have been training sales teams and commission-based sales representatives for about 20 years. And so they achieve the best results. And when you're on commission only, as most of us solopreneurs, entrepreneurs are, we don't sell something, we don't make money, then it's just helping them truly overcome their anxiety around selling and cold calling and just feeling really comfortable with it is probably most of the training that I do. And doing that through developing systems that work, not sales scripts and not anything that feels really icky and salesy, but just being really authentic and building how to build relationships really. And a bit of personality profiling as well, so that people can identify what type of conversation they need to have with somebody. And then importantly, working on the follow up and follow through. So I've been doing that for a long time. I taught aerobics for about 10 years, and I think that was my hardest sell ever, was getting people their joggers on. You know, once they got their joggers on, they had to go to the gym and they had to do the class. Then it was okay.
My mum used to be an aerobics instructor. I remember listening to Jive Bunny Master Mix, I think it was called, on vinyl, believe it or not, when she was working out her choreography for her aerobics classes.
I'm not quite that old. I'm not the vinyl, okay? But it was. But I did become a fan of it during the Jane Fonda era.
Naturally.
I used to go to the gyms and lay out gym wear and sell it and take orders and go back a month's time with this beautiful, exotic leotard material. And it was just great. But
crazy.
So everything I've ever done in my life has been around building connections and making sales and doing it quite successfully. And had the opportunity to present in Japan and quite a few places through the US and Hawaii and around Australia as well, on all topics that are associated with, right from rapport building through to, how do you make a sale?
I love it. And I think there's a really, it's really cool to hear of someone who's been doing it that way for so long, because I feel like in my circles and my experience, when I first started my business, I was like, I've got to do the old-fashioned traditional versions of all the things that I thought selling was. And then the more that I've sort of gotten into it, that it's like the last thing that you do is a sales conversation. It is all about that connection and communication and authenticity, which is a completely overused word, but I totally agree that it's just about being completely who you are, and it's that magnetic kind of marketing rather than push marketing. So I love the fact that you've been doing it for so long and so successfully and all over the world. So I can't wait to pick your brains a little bit more about that. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and it's very different to when I first started doing it. It was very much that, that high, forceful, here's your sales script, go out and do it type of thing. And it just didn't gel with me at all. And when I first started working for a company that sold first aid supplies, really honest, sort of legitimate company, and they were very much into no, just go and talk about relationships as well. So they resonated with me, and I still work there part-time as a sales manager 20 years later, but I do it very part-time now, which is super cool because I can run my own coaching business as well.
Oh, awesome.
And from there, when I started with them, I was selling about $1,000 a week if I was lucky, a couple of $1,000 a week with a product. And then by the time I'd finished, there was only a day a week's work, really. And so it was a couple of $1,000s a month I was selling for them. And when I went into the management role, we split my territory 4 ways, and I was doing over $36,000 a month. So
yeah,
35% commissions.
Amazing. Not
that was
bad.
cool. That was good.
So before we go any further, I have a little sales story of my own, actually. Well, a couple of them, but the one particular, so I started work when I was 14 and 9 months. I worked for Best and Less. I was, it's another long story, but I always ended up in these management positions since I was 16. I ended up doing like supervising, and I was in retail for a long time, and then I was in corporate management, HR and operations, that sort of thing. But when I went to, I moved from Darwin, where I had finished my high schooling. I went down to Adelaide and I went to uni for a year. And then I took a gap year, never went back, but we'll call it a gap year. And I spent the first 6 months of that year, so that would have been 2002, working for, oh my gosh, a company who was contracted by AAPT. Remember that telephone company? I don't even know if it's around anymore. And I did business to business. So kind of trying to convert people over from Telstra, Optus, Vodafone, whatever, onto AAPT. I remember we used to get paid $30 for every business, $15 for every home, and $25 or something for every mobile phone.
Right.
And it was dreadful work. I absolutely hated almost every minute of it, except for the social side of it and, that sort of thing. But I remember, we had so much sales training. That's all it was. It was all about sales. The only rewards were about sales. You got to ring the bell or ring the gong or whatever it was. If you'd made 5 or 10 or all of that sort of thing.
Oh my gosh.
But I remember every time someone sells something to me, I remember this thing called GIFTS, I think it was, GIFTS. And it was like the 5 ways to try and sell people, to try and trick people into thinking it. And there was like, T was the Jones theory. So everyone on the street signed up. Why wouldn't you sign up to AAPT? Like if fear of loss. So if you don't do it now, you might not get another chance. As if, whatever, all those sort of things. And every time it happens to me now, I still think, is Jones theoring me? She's Jones theoring me. Is she Jones theoring me? And I've kind of got this thing in my head. So since then, actually, before I go any further, I've got a friend who was working for the same company up until about 3 or 4 years ago. And apparently at that point, I still held the record for the most amount of sales in a day.
Oh, wow.
I got a bit lucky. On my last door was a St. Vincent's de Paul, and the guy who ran it ran 11 of them, and he signed all of them up. So I had a momentous day. It was absolutely fantastic, and, all that sort of thing. The culture was cool, but the sales were a bit crazy. So
well done with that.
Thank you very much. I've particularly since then had, I guess, some real hang-ups around sales. And like I said, I worked in retail for quite a long time. So there was obviously a very big focus on sales in some of those companies, or most of those companies. So now that I'm in my own business, it's really interesting how I like noticing my thought processes and that sort of thing about selling. And I know when I first started, I had a business coach, and she sort of said, we'll do these processes, and we were doing like avatar interviews. So I do an avatar interview, get the information, a couple of weeks later, give them a session back, and then at the end say, if you want to keep working together, these are the things. And every single one, I think I did 8 of them, every single one of them I chickened out and I didn't say anything at the end. I sent them a message afterwards with something like a total excuse, like, oh, my coach will kill me if I don't send you this outline.
Blame somebody else. That's
blame someone else, exactly. It's a great way to start and get over that as having an excuse. But it is really interesting, because now I know that probably 70% of clients who come to me are referral based. So I know it's proof that, all of that sort of thing is definitely in the communication and the connection, and the people that I work with get so much value and so much connection. We have so much fun, and there's so many awesome outcomes that the sales kind of take care of themselves. So is that kind of part of your sort of philosophy on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And getting getting the referrals is fabulous when you're doing something well. And what we do as entrepreneurs, it's different when you're working. So as you gave that example of working for AAPT, is if someone said no, it wasn't you personally. You didn't take it as personally as you do when it's your own business. There's a lot more emotion in the conversation when it's yourself they're saying no to, as opposed to another company.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah. And
that's where we get hung up on a lot of things. And a lot of the conversations that we have them in our head. So we already we've got a story that's their own personal story. They won't buy from me because I am just a single operator and I'm not like one of the big guys. They won't buy from me because it's too expensive. They won't buy from me because I don't have the degrees that other people have. Now, there's a whole lot of stories that we take in with us into a sales conversation, and I call it the elephant in the room. And you as the will be sitting there thinking, they're going to bring it up. They're going to bring it up. They're going to bring it up. And so you've got this story going on in your head, rather than knowing why people will and won't buy from you, and how to actually broach something before it becomes something that you have to, it's not the word argue about, but you have to defend. And so that you bring it up, you initiate it, and knowing how to have that conversation to do that is really, really critical. If that's important to that person, it may not even be relevant or important until you ask questions, and then ask some more questions, you won't know.
So on a practical side of things, I think what you're talking about is like overcoming objections, either before they become objections or as they become objections. And I noticed that a lot of entrepreneurs, especially people who have online courses or online sales pages and that sort of thing, they often have the FAQs, which is like obviously a cool way of almost answering those objections or questions before they kind of even come up. Is that the sort of thing that you're talking about? That's the sort of thing I'm talking about.
And online, you don't get the opportunity to have a conversation, and so that's what you need to do with that. So if you're in a sales conversation and your story in your head is that, oh, I'm too expensive, they won't buy from me, and you do know that price is a point of, an important factor of their decision making. You actually have found that out by asking the questions and asking them the right way. Is that when you go into that conversation, you could say something like, look, when I've had these conversations with companies exactly like yours in the past, sometimes the first thing they're thinking of is about how much it's going to cost. Whereas once they've had a look at it and really delved deep and realised the value in it, that the cost is still relevant, but when they weigh it up against the value, they can see that that's not the first thing they should be looking at. So you can see how powerful that is, because you've brought it up and you've directed it in a way that, well, oh my gosh, I should be thinking of value. You've already presupposed the person is going to think like this. They've put it in their thinking. Oh, okay, so I'll delete that pricing's an issue.
That's really, really clever. I really like that, and I guess it's a confidence thing to a certain extent, and it's sort of a trial and error, and you've got to have these conversations and try them out before you get totally comfortable with them usually. So Another question I have is I've put my prices up, I think, 3 or 4 times now, most recently about 2 weeks ago. And I put them up as like my hourly rate has gone up. And every time I put my rates up, it's definitely gotten easier, and I've felt less guilt about it and less hang-ups and less like I don't feel like I have to have this, 3-month lead that I've got to tell everyone. I can just say, next week my prices are going up. Like, I don't have to apologize for it, sort of thing. But it has been a massive block, and I know it's a really big block for people, especially in the first year or two of their business, because you're still kind of struggling with that worth, and you want to be cheap enough or low priced enough so that you're accessible, so that you're getting lots of new people through the door, so that you're building your credibility and your referral and your networks and all that sort of thing. But also, I've heard it said that the fastest way to start resenting your gift is to do it for free or to do it for too cheap. And I know I've definitely been in that place where I've really started to resent my business and my clients and the work that I'm doing because I'm just not charging enough for it. And I'm thinking, why am I up at midnight when I'm only charging $50 an hour or something? Like, I might as well go and work at Coles and I'll probably be earning the same for this sort of, this sort of hours of work and whatnot. So any kind of tips around that sort of thing, because I think it's quite an important thing, is that price point, and especially when you're a solopreneur, that to make it balance out with all the hours that you do and that sort of thing, you do often have a higher hourly rate than what you might get elsewhere. So yeah, any sort of tips on the mindset and the process and the practicalities of pricing?
That's a whole lot of really good points in there, because exactly right. A lot of people do start off at that lower rate, and that's a good part of the discussion as well, because it is that start off rate. And part of the getting comfortable with whatever it is what you're comfortable with. I really get frustrated with these presenters that go, that say, I used to charge $50 an hour, I now charge $10,000 and get the top line customers, and that's what you should be doing as well. Well, it's not. The people that I personally like to work with, that I choose to work with, can't afford that. So, to me, to put prices at that level means that, as you said, it's not accessible to them. But again, I want a level that is for my worth and the value that I offer. So the price points I've chosen for me fits that, and I think that's the best way to give that. For anyone to do that is to say, okay, what do I need to be now? But exactly what you're doing. What do I need to have as my price point that I value myself and I respect myself at this level? And if I do, then others will as well.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. It's really about kind of standing in your own truth and not, you can't be all things to everyone. And I know I still have a tendency to, when I send off a proposal or a quote or something, I still have this urge and this kind of hesitation before I send it, like, oh, maybe I should just drop $100 off, or maybe I should add an extra couple of hours, or maybe I should add, I'm trying to work out how to give even more value. And then I think, come on, let's just break it down a bit again. But it's a really big kind of block, because I think that, that kind of block that people have around their worth and asking for money. And I don't know if it's particularly a thing that's more prevalent in women, that we, have to be in that space of receiving and being open to receiving, to kind of have that okayness with asking for a certain amount of money. And maybe that's just a bit of a practice and a trial and error kind of situation, that you've really got to go through that process until you get totally comfortable with it.
You see me nodding? Yeah. It's yeah. Look, I've got 2 grown sons, and they work in construction, and one in particular keeps moving from company to company, getting more and more skills and getting higher placed jobs. And at the moment, he's got 350 staff running a $150 million job, and he's 33. So he's worked his way through. He just asks for it.
Yeah.
He just goes to the next company and says, I'm going to work hard, and I'll work long hours, but this is what I want to get paid. And he has no hesitation in doing that whatsoever.
I used to work in recruitment and HR, and I remember something I read one day that said something like, say if you're looking at a job ad on Seek or whatever, that women won't even apply for a job unless they feel like they meet at least 85% of the skills and experience that's required in that job ad. Men only have to feel they meet 15% of it.
Really? That's a big difference.
They've just got the guts or the confidence or the arrogance, maybe, I don't know, to just go, I'm not qualified, I don't have the experience, but I'm going to go for it anyway. And as a result, like every time I see statistics about women having lower pay grades and lower promotion rates and all that sort of thing, I think it's got something to do with that, because we kind of think this, oh no, they won't take us seriously, I won't even send my resume. Whereas, you know, having worked in recruitment, I know that I used to always favor recruiting for personality and motivation and those kind of key traits rather than their experience. You can teach skills. You can't teach perseverance, resilience, agility, teamwork, all that sort of thing. You can't teach that stuff. I mean, you probably can, but it's not as inherent if you don't already have it. I'd rather have someone who was straight out of school and had no idea what they were doing, that had a great attitude and was open to learning and was a great team player and all that sort of thing, than someone who'd been, you know, doing it for 20 years who had a shitty attitude. So I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it is. And you said that, I found that really interesting, that women's 80%, men are 15%. And that's because we might be a fraud. And, you know, we found out to be a fraud if we can't do something. And women tend to judge women a lot more harshly than they judge men as well. And I don't know, is it our mothers that have done it to us, and their mothers and their mothers? I don't know where it comes from, but it is. And when you're coming into that sales conversation, it's exactly the same. You know, they might think I'm a fraud. You know, I'm not as good as somebody else. But we've got to believe that we are, especially when we're going out in business for ourselves, that we've got a ton to offer. And that's one of the biggest things that I focus on in my workshops. There's a system, and the first part is to step into your own self, you know, really step out of the comfort zone and step into yourself, and then own your personal power. Because there's no use teaching sales. All of the tips and techniques and all of the profiling, everything, there's no use teaching any of that until you own your own stuff.
I absolutely love it. It is such a fundamental thing. And I think I think all of this is part of a process. Like, I don't think there's too many people who walk in and say, I'm going to start my own business, and they completely know the direction they're going in, and they completely know how much they're going to charge, and they completely own how amazing they are. And something that's been really kind of fundamental to my learning, I think, is that I don't have to know everything, but there are people who are 3 to 5 years behind me who I can offer stuff to. There's people who are 3 or 5 years in front of me, and they don't need to learn from me. I need to learn from them. They're not my dream client. They're not the people who are going to work with me, and I'm okay with that. But in the start, I thought, oh, well, you know, if I don't know as much as those people, then why would anyone work with me? But you've totally got, I have a 6-week online course called Pause for Effect. And the second module is called All of You, which is about, it's almost like collating your CV, like from your business and your experience, your personal life, like everything that's happened until now that you could potentially be bringing to the table in your business, whether it's internal or for your clients, and kind of pulling all that together. Because remember when we used to go for jobs and you'd do your CV and you'd tell them how great you were, and you'd put all these beautiful keywords around how you were a team player and you were perseverant and you were a thought leader and you were a problem solver and all that sort of thing. And you had 7 years of experience in this and 20 years of experience in this. And then we go into our own businesses and we're like, oh, I don't want anyone to know I used to do that stuff. Oh no, that's not a thing I do now. Like I have so many different lives. Every time I talk to someone, they're like, oh, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you did that, because I've got, you know, lots of experience. And there's some of it that I used to be a little bit, I don't know if embarrassed is the right word, but I just didn't think it was relevant, so I didn't talk about it. But when I kind of delve into it and go, actually, these are all the skills and experiences and interactions and things that I learned from that, why wouldn't I bring that to the table? Like, why wouldn't I put all of that together? Because all of the things that have happened have gotten me to where I'm at now. Even things outside of my career, like having children, buying a house, traveling, like all of that sort of thing has stuff that I can offer my business and my clients.
Absolutely, totally agree. I've written a book on, it's called Good Girls Do Sell, and the tagline is The Modern Businesswoman's Guide to Authentic Selling.
Love it.
I've got lots of my stories in it, and I very much like you. I started in a cut price store, which is, I don't know whether they exist anymore, but it's like a local IGA type of thing, and left school at 15 with the intention of going back and becoming a teacher. And then I got paid $37 a week. I was no way in the world I was going back to school ever again. It was incredible money I know it's a long time ago. Okay.
Wow.
It was super exciting. And again, you thinking that, you, as you said, best and less, and working in that environment. But my gosh, the learning from that environment as a 15-year-old, I would never have got that teaching at school. Not at all, and that's sort of carried me through with everything that I've done. And now at the level that I am now, to be able to, teach others to do what they can do and to be their authentic selves, their real selves. But it starts way back then. And I've got stories of being bullied by the boss and things like that, but that just stood me in it made me stronger and better, and you move on to the next position. It does the same.
Hashtag trust the process. It's totally absolutely. And I think the same thing. And I used to get the shits when people would be so derogatory and so insulting to me because I was still in retail, or I was just in retail, and that sort of thing. And the most recent retail job I had, I was managing 3 stores in a flagship capacity. Three stores. I think we had a management team of about 10, staff of about 80, and we were turning over $11 or $12 million a year. I'm not just working in a shop because I'm too stupid to go to university or something. And the business stuff that I learned and had to manage and have control and have relationships and all that sort of thing, you just don't learn that anywhere else. Well, I shouldn't say anywhere else, but it was amazing. I had such incredible experience and connections and that sort of thing. And I, like from a really young age, I was earning pretty good money. I think when I was working my first retail management job after I finished uni, or after I stopped uni, I was earning like $28,000 a year, which at the time I was like, what? Someone's paying me $28,000 a year? Great. By the end, I was earning almost $90,000 for, there. I've worked in London, in the flagship store of Gap right on Oxford Street, the flagship of Europe, with the exposure that sort of place had was amazing. And being part of such a massive machine that's got 800 people in it, and it's just a crazy thing to do. But people really had this kind of thing, still in retail, are you?
I know, and that's one of the things I have about this push towards everyone has to go to university. Every child in the school has to go to university. And as I said, my son is 33 in construction, earning over $250,000 a year, and works hard for the money, but he's responsible for a $150 million job. And he's done 2 trades, and he worked in a cafe from 16, and he does great food prep as well. It's he can cook really good stuff, but it's life skills. That's what it's about. It's what we're good at. And this is, obviously both you and I are good at building connections with people and having conversations and really trying to help people and find out what their needs are and what we can do and what we can offer to assist them. And that's what sales is all about. That's not trying to sell anything to anybody. It's all about finding out a way of what you can offer can help somebody else.
I love it. So my last question, and you've just answered one of them, my last question is, what 3 takeaways or what 3 things can people do to start selling in a way that doesn't feel gross to them? And obviously, like you've said, is about the relationship and about finding a way to articulate your journey and therefore what you know and what you're good at and what your experience is and how you can help other people is number 1. What other couple of things would be the top?
And just adding to that too, but being able to listen, ask more questions and listen rather than talk as well. That's really, really vital. And listening to how people say things and what they say. I think one of the things that we need to give ourselves a break is there's a few reasons people won't buy from us. Sometimes they just don't need what you've got. That's a really biggie. And just don't look, if you're not going skiing, there's a good chance you won't need snow boots. Really good chance. So there are things that people just don't need, and most of the time they don't buy from you because they don't see value in what you offer, and they don't trust you yet. Go back to point number one. That's it. All comes around, and just and I know we haven't even touched on this yet, but something that I do with the personality profiling is recognizing that everyone is seeing the world differently than you are. So where you're sitting at this particular time is different than where somebody else is. So being able to understand their needs from their position rather than what you want to push out, then is really vital as well. And it's all about communication.
I think that's really interesting. And you and I talked about this briefly before I hit record, but that's really sort of struck a chord for me, and something that I do. I talk a lot about content. I help a lot of people with their content planning, and often for every piece of content that you create or that someone creates, I suggest creating four sort of posts, like on social media, for example. So we'll do 4 different posts with a different question or a different angle that will lead everyone back to that same piece of content, but it will pique different people's interest because we've used different keywords or different style of questioning or a different statement or something like that. So what you're saying is quite similar to that. So you might have one thing that you're selling, and it might actually tick off 3 or 4 different pain points, but not everyone has all 3 or 4 of those pain points. They might just be trying to solve one. So you talk about one, after the other, so that they kind of maybe pick more people or pick up more people, rather than bombarding them with, well, we only fix this thing, where actually it's fixing a few other things, but you've got to kind of talk to the pain points a bit as well in the outcomes.
That is difficult to do when you've got a 1-minute pitch. You really do need to focus on one pain point. I also coach in professional presenting, so it just made me think about that topic as well. So if I've got somebody that's coming to me that's so nervous that they can't string their words together and they'll never speak in front of an audience, I have people that are fairly skilled, and they just want to, find out if they've never been evaluated. They've just gone out and presented, and nobody's ever told them how well they have done before. And others just have a story, and they don't care really how well they present it, but they want to get that story out. So if I'm delivering a marketing thing to them, yes, I need to be aware that each one of those has got a different reason to come to me, but they'll all do the same course.
Right. Interesting.
Because it'll answer all those needs.
Yeah. But, until recently, I didn't really understand this sell them what they want, give them what they need concept. I always thought that sounds really dodgy. That I don't like the idea of that. I just want to sell them what they need. Like, I don't want to, but now I understand that it's really it's using the same language, and it's talking to the thing that they want, whether it's ego related or outcome related or money related or something like that. And then you've got your own methodology and your own sort of process of going through to fix that pain point and to get a good outcome. And that's actually what it means, I think. So I think that's a really cool one to remember as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
awesome.
Because you, as same as what you do with your clients, you know what works.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you stood there and say, hey, I'm the expert, I know it works, just sit down and shut up and
just trust me. Sit down and trust me.
It's not until, I have clients I could do that with, and you'd be the same. They just trust you with everything now. If you tell them something, they'll trust you.
Yes.
But that takes a while to get there.
It does. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Janeen. It's been absolutely beautiful chatting with you. A very interesting and slightly different from the usual kind of conversation. It's very practical and definitely something that's massive in our industry, in especially solo ladypreneurs, getting over that kind of sales thing. And maybe we need to call it something different than sales. It's sales eventually, but it's really about relationship building, and that know, like, and trust factor is massive. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been fun. It's on the other side of the microphone is
it's
quite different. It's great. Awesome. I think I told you I got interviewed on my own podcast the other day. Quite a different experience as well.
Very cool. And now, Janeen, where can people find you? We'll put your links and everything in show notes, obviously, but is there a easy place for people who, if they're interested, to go and find you or find your book or anything like that?
Everything's on my website. So I've got
Okay.
lots of other social media things, but it's probably just easier to go to the website, which is speechperfect.com.au. And there's a calendar there that's got lists all of the training sessions, all of the workshops that are coming up, the books for sale on there. I've got the download the podcasts. I've got heaps of blogs as well. So
Wow. It's all
plenty of
happening.
entertainment.
Brilliant. Hours of fun. Hours of fun. All right, Janeen. Well, thanks very much again, and we'll be in touch soon.
Loved it, Claire. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. And that is absolutely it, my lovely. So I hope you've really enjoyed the episode. It was great fun recording that one, as it is with all of them. If you'd like to connect, I'd love to stay in touch with you. I have a beautiful Facebook group community at bit.ly/The Recovering Perfectionist Crew with all capital TRP and C. I have a massive goal this year to get 50,000 downloads on my podcast, and I've got a YouTube show as well. So I'd love for you to help me out if you can by either subscribing to the podcast on iTunes. So if you want to go over and do that now, that would be awesome. If you have a couple of favourite episodes, or if there's one favourite episode that you've really enjoyed, I would love you to share that with anyone who you think would get as much out of it as you have as well. And while you're in iTunes, if you can jump in and give it a review, that would be amazing. iTunes definitely helps out podcasts that have got some good ratings and reviews and some really interactive listeners. So I would really appreciate your help with getting to my goal of 50,000 in 2017. The show is also available over on YouTube. The links are always in the show notes, so you can head over there. So it's The Recovering Perfectionist on YouTube. There's a channel for that as well. So jump in and leave your comments. You can watch all of the episodes in video. So if you want to see what we look like and our crazy hand gestures and facial expressions and all of that sort of thing, absolutely jump in. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel show as well, and then you'll be kept up to date when there's some new episodes that come in there. So yeah, love your support. And if you want to shoot me an email, it's hello@clairebarton.com.au. Always happy to receive your emails and open up a conversation. All right, big love. I'll chat with you soon. Bye.